gentlemen. Let me start with you, if I may, Mr. Lardieri. This is your son. He's 14. You're both members, I believe, of the NRA, and he has worn this T-shirt to school. Did you at any point think that this T-shirt would breach any of the school's regulations?
No, because we knew that wouldn't be an issue, you know, particularly here in southern West Virginia, where we're primarily, I mean, basically we are a gun culture here. Even the kids in November, they get a 2-week vacation just because of hunting season in itself. So that sort of thought really doesn't cross anybody's mind, not in this particular region. Maybe in some other places, but it never really crossed our mind here.
So what was your reaction when he was arrested by police? And we should make it clear, he wasn't arrested for wearing the T-shirt. He was arrested because of an altercation with the police who were brought to the school because a teacher had protested at seeing your son wearing this shirt in, I believe, his lunch break.
Yes. The events that I've come to find out about, I was at work when I was informed, and it's like I said, here you hear these stories going on, and no matter where it happens, it's always a shame that it happens. But here, to have that happen was a shock. Like I said, I was at work. I got the phone call, and I made it to the station, and that's pretty much where I linked up with him and my wife.
Let's play a clip from an interview that your son gave. This is just a brief summary of what he said.
There's nothing wrong with it, and it doesn't violate the policy in any way. And things get out of hand. Educational process is not lunchtime, in my opinion. And if anyone disturbed it, it was definitely the educator and not me.
And that was Jared there, who's 14 and wore this shirt. Let me go to Ben White now. You're the attorney for the family. It's a fascinating case. I mean, people know my view about gun control, but that doesn't extend to a blanket hatred of all things NRA. I have my problem with the NRA leadership and the rhetoric they use, and I don't like the way that they're exploited by gun manufacturers. And I know that you're both aware of my position on that, but you still come on the show because my view about this is he's entitled to freedom of expression, freedom of speech. If he wants to wear a T-shirt supporting the fact he's a member of a perfectly legal organisation, I don't really have a problem with that. Why, Ben White, do you think the school, or does the school, that's an interesting question, is it just a rogue teacher, or does the school have a real problem? Because he went back and wore it again after his suspension ended.
Absolutely, he wore the shirt again, and Pierce, 100 additional students wore that same shirt throughout the entire school system, grade schools, middle schools, and the various high schools in the county without incident. I did meet with the local attorney for the school board, and we went through the policy ourselves with her, and they concluded that there wasn't an issue with the policy. The principal actually went through the policy with Jared after he was physically brought to the principal's office, and she learned that there wasn't anything wrong with that shirt under the current policy. The teacher just clearly didn't understand the policy, and I've advocated to the board through the attorney that the teachers that are going to enforce these rules should understand the rules, at least read the rules and the regulations to understand what they're trying to enforce on these little kids. These are 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and to come at a student.
I've read the policy quite carefully. There is one reference to not wearing anything which has imagery of violence, and you could argue that a gun in itself is always an image of potential violence. I mean, you could take that position. Let me ask you again, Alan,
well,
what is your
I mean, you would take that. I mean, my view is not. I mean, this was clearly a hunting rifle, and it was an NRA branded T-shirt. Jared is an avid hunter, so is his father, and it was a hunting rifle.
I think you're missing my point, though. Ben, you're missing my point. I'm not disputing it was fun. I wasn't disputing the fact it may be for hunting, but even hunting is a violent sport. I mean, a gun that goes off is a violent thing. And I suppose you could argue, if you're playing devil's advocate here, that the fact the school had a policy of no violent imagery could extend to a gun used for hunting.
It could, but it doesn't. It clearly doesn't. I mean, we've gotten the input from everybody from the principal up to their attorney, and it doesn't in this case, Pierce. I mean, we could argue that. We could argue a lot of things, but it clearly doesn't. And proof in the pudding, per se, is when 100 other students wore the same shirt, there was no incident. In fact, my 6-year-old wore the same shirt kind of as a joke. And there was no incident anywhere, not even with the little kids, the high school kids. And so if it violated the policy or anybody believed that would be an argument, we would have heard of that clearly by now, and we haven't.
Okay, Alan, final question for you. You know, having said that I respect the right of NRA members, including your son, to wear T-shirts that support the organisation that they're a legal member of, and I do, there is a different point, which is, I guess, a more sensitive point, really, which is in light of the fact of the massacre at Sandy Hook. Is it really judicious for any school child to go to school wearing any kind of T-shirt which has any kind of gun imagery? Would it not just be best to have the debate about gun control and guns and the NRA out of school classrooms and out of school playgrounds?
Well, you may have an argument there in certain places, Piers. But again, back in the particular area that we have, the imagery of firearms is certainly nothing that is usually perceived as being menacing. You'd also want to look in front of the school. There's a large statue that firearms are not an evil thing, because it is a World War I doughboy with a fixed bayonet on an '03 Springfield rifle, who is shown quite proudly right in front of the school. And additionally, our own state flag has 2 rifles on it as well. You know, the firearm is merely an implement. It is a tool. How it is used, you know, perceives it, is it a weapon or is it an implement to feed your family? That's all done on an individual basis. You got to keep in mind, these sort of horrendous acts are done by individuals, and I just see more and more people are prone to legislation that removes the human element out of it. They want to blame an inanimate object instead of put in personal human accountability and everything.
Well, you make some points there. I don't agree with all of them, but I respect the fact you come on the show knowing my position on these things, and it's an interesting argument. To you, Alan Lardieri, and to Ben White, thank you both very much.
Thank you, sir.